There is an ancient stillness that lives within you, a silence that predates the first word you ever spoke and will remain long after the last thought has dissolved. It is not an emptiness to be feared, but a presence to be discovered. It is the vast, quiet canvas upon which the frantic and colourful paintings of your life are drawn. In the theatre of the modern world, the stage is always lit, the actors always speaking. The mind has become a tireless commentator, narrating every sensation, judging every interaction, and rehearsing every future possibility. It constructs elaborate histories and projects anxious futures, rarely allowing for the simple, unadorned reality of the present moment. A person can sit in a perfectly quiet room, yet be deafened by the roar of their own inner monologue. They can be surrounded by beauty, yet see only the filter of their own worries and desires. This is the human condition, the shared inheritance of a mind that was designed for survival, not for peace. It constantly scans the horizon for threats, real or imagined, and replays past mistakes to ensure they are never repeated. It is a faithful servant, but a tyrannical master. Yet, beneath this churning surface, the stillness waits. You have felt it before, perhaps without knowing its name. It may have been a momentary pause in the midst of a crisis, a sudden, inexplicable calm when all logic dictated panic. It might have been the feeling of gazing at a vast ocean or a star-filled night sky, when the small, chattering self briefly fell away, leaving only a sense of profound connection and awe. This is not an accident. It is a homecoming. It is your own deepest nature calling you back to the source. The great sages and Stoic philosophers spoke of this place. The Zen masters called it the original face, the face you had before you were born. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius called it the inner citadel, a fortress within the soul that no external chaos could ever breach. He understood that while the world would relentlessly throw its storms at him, betrayal, war, loss, and sickness, the inner sanctum of his mind remained his to command. Peace, he realized, was not the absence of trouble, but the presence of a well-ordered inner world. This journey is not about fighting the mind. To fight a thought is to give it strength. To wrestle with an emotion is to become entangled in its grip. Instead, this is an invitation to simply notice, to become the silent observer of your own experience. Imagine yourself sitting on the bank of a great river. The water is the flow of your thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Sometimes it is calm and clear. Other times it is a raging, muddy torrent. For years, you have been swept away by this river, believing you are the current. The practice of stillness is the act of gently stepping out of the water and taking a seat on the bank. From there, you can watch the river flow by. You notice the thoughts, the old memories, the sudden anxieties, but you no longer identify with them. They are simply driftwood floating past. They are not you. This is the beginning of freedom. It is the discovery that you are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears the voice. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds the storm. The sky is not damaged by the lightning nor disturbed by the thunder. It simply allows it all to be. This is your true capacity. So, find your comfortable space. Let the outer world fade and allow this journey to begin. In this quiet space you now inhabit, notice the nature of receptivity. There is a story, a well-known parable from the Zen tradition that speaks directly to this. A university professor, a man of great learning and reputation, traveled to visit a famous Zen master named Nanin. The professor came not as a student, but as an investigator. He came to learn about Zen, but also to display his own formidable knowledge, to debate, and to categorize this Eastern wisdom within the vast library of his own mind. He was a collector of concepts, and Zen was to be his latest acquisition. The master greeted him with quiet humility and invited him for tea. As Nanin prepared the cups, the professor began to speak. He spoke of philosophy, of psychology, of the intricate histories of spiritual traditions. He filled the small room with his words, his theories, and his certainties. Nanin listened patiently, his hands moving with graceful, deliberate care. When the tea was ready, the master began to pour it into the professor's cup. He filled it to the brim, and then he kept pouring. The hot tea overflowed, spilling onto the saucer, and then from the saucer onto the fine wooden table. The professor watched, first with confusion, then with alarm. Finally, he could no longer contain himself. "It's full," he exclaimed. "No more will go in." Nanin stopped pouring, looked calmly at the scholar, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" In that moment, the spilled tea became the master's true teaching. It was not a lecture to be analyzed, but an experience to be felt. The professor had come to add more water to an already overflowing vessel. He believed wisdom was an act of accumulation, a gathering of more and more information until the mind was an impenetrable fortress of facts. The master showed him that true wisdom is an act of subtraction, of creating space. This overflowing cup is the perfect symbol for the modern mind. A person's mind is rarely a vessel waiting to be filled. It is a pressurized container, already overflowing with content. It is full of news alerts and expert analyses, of trending topics and viral opinions. It is saturated with the highlight reels of other people's lives, creating a silent, relentless pressure to measure up. Your own cup is full. It is full of the stories you have been telling yourself for years, stories about what you are capable of, what you deserve, what others think of you. These are not just thoughts. They have solidified into beliefs, into the very architecture of your identity. When you encounter a new experience, a new person, or a new idea, it has no room to breathe. It is instantly judged, categorized, and forced to fit into the existing clutter. You listen to your partner not with an open heart, but through the filter of past arguments. You approach a creative task not with a beginner's curiosity, but with the dead weight of your belief that you are not a creative person. You cannot see the world as it is. You only see the reflection of your own full mind. To empty the cup does not mean becoming ignorant or mindless. It means cultivating the quality of the open sky. The sky does not cling to the clouds that pass through it. It does not identify with the storm or the brilliant sunlight. It is the vast, silent, allowing presence in which all weather happens. To empty your cup is to adopt the spaciousness of the sky. It is to listen without immediately formulating a reply. It is to observe a feeling of anger or sadness without immediately concluding, "I am an angry person." It is the simple, radical act of admitting, even just to yourself? I don't know. In that admission, a space is created. In that space, genuine learning can occur. In that space, you can finally taste the fresh, pure water of direct experience, rather than the stale, lukewarm tea of your own preconceptions. It is the first step in seeing the world and yourself with new eyes. With the cup now momentarily empty, a certain clarity can arise. In this new space, you may begin to notice the things that were too heavy or too dense to float to the surface before. You may become aware of the burdens you carry without even realizing their weight. Imagine a person who has written a letter. It is a single sheet of paper, perhaps filled with words of burning anger or deep forgiveness, or a love they were too afraid to confess. They seal it in an envelope, but they never send it. The letter sits in a drawer, a forgotten object. But is it forgotten? That physical piece of paper is light as a feather, yet the person carries its weight everywhere. It is in the tension in their shoulders as they drive to work. It is the subtle flavor of sadness in a moment of joy. It is the unseen guest at their dinner table, the silent companion in their bed at night. The letter is not just paper and ink. It is a concentration of unresolved energy. It is a conversation suspended in time, a story without an ending. The mind, in its loyalty, refuses to let the story go. It replays the unhad conversation, rehearses different outcomes, and feels the sting of the unspoken words over and over again. The person is no longer living in the present moment. They are living in the phantom world of the letter. This is the nature of clinging. The Buddhist teachings speak of this as attachment not just to physical things, but to views, to emotions, and to narratives. These unresolved emotional loops are like ghosts we invite to live in our minds. They feed on our attention. The more we replay the grievance, the more we lament the regret, the stronger the ghost becomes, until we mistake its whispers for our own voice. We believe its story. We believe we are the story of the unsent letter. You carry your own unsent letters. They may not be written on paper, but their weight is just as real. An unsent letter might be the argument you had yesterday, an exchange that you continue to litigate in the courtroom of your mind, always coming up with the perfect, crushing retort hours too late. It is the lingering resentment toward a family member, an old wound that subtly tightens your chest whenever you see their face or hear their name. It is the shame from a past failure that has become a core belief about your own worth, a quiet poison that undermines your confidence. It is the love you never expressed, the gratitude you never gave, the apology you never made. These are the invisible anchors that moor you to the past, preventing your ship from sailing freely in the present. This is not just a psychological phenomenon, it is a physical one. The body keeps the score. The weight of these burdens is felt in the perpetually clenched jaw, the tight knot of anxiety in the stomach, the chronic ache in the lower back. It is a weariness that sleep cannot cure, because it is not the body that is tired, but the spirit, exhausted from carrying ghosts. The path to freedom is not to pretend the letters do not exist. It is not to violently tear them up or to shame yourself for having written them. The path is to look at them with the quiet, spacious awareness you are cultivating. You bring the letter out of the dark drawer and into the light of your attention. You look at it without judgment. You feel its weight You notice the story it tells. You feel the sadness, or the anger, or the fear it contains. But you do not become it. You are the one observing the letter. In this gentle, unwavering observation, something miraculous happens. You stop feeding the ghost with your energy. By allowing the feeling to simply be, without resistance or narrative, its charge begins to dissipate. The story loses its power. The ink fades. The letter, which once felt as heavy as a stone, becomes paper again, and you are free to set it down. Once you have set down the heavy letters of the past, a newfound lightness emerges. But the world does not stop sending its messages. The winds of circumstance will continue to blow. The storms of other people's emotions and the chaos of daily life will still rage. Having cleared a space within, the next task is to learn how to guard it. This is not a lesson of aggression, but one of profound resilience. There was a Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, who was arguably the most powerful man in the world, yet he was intimately acquainted with powerlessness. He ruled during a time of constant war on the frontiers of his empire, a devastating plague that decimated his people, and the constant threat of political betrayal within his own court. Every day, he was besieged by an outer storm of terrifying force, and yet, in the pre-dawn quiet of his campaign tent, by the light of a simple oil lamp, he did not strategize about battle. He engaged in a different kind of fortification. He wrote to himself, building, brick by painful brick, what he called his inner citadel. He reminded himself, over and over, of a simple, unshakable truth that forms the bedrock of Stoic philosophy. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Within our control are our judgments, our impulses, our intentions, and our responses. Outside of our control is everything else: our body, our reputation, our wealth, and the actions of others. He saw that the entirety of human suffering arose from a simple confusion between these two categories. A person becomes miserable when they try to command the things they cannot control, while completely neglecting the one domain where they are sovereign, their own mind. The outer storm cannot be stopped. The rain will fall, the wind will howl, but the integrity of the fortress within, that is entirely up to you. The storms you face may not be the legions of Germania, but they are storms nonetheless. The storm is the critical email from a boss that lands in your inbox just as you are trying to rest. It is the sudden, unexpected illness of a loved one. It is the sting of a careless comment from a friend. It is the pervasive anxiety that hums beneath the surface of the news and social media. In these moments, notice how your energy immediately rushes outward. You try to control the other person's opinion. You try to argue with a diagnosis. You try to mentally push back against reality itself. You are, in effect, standing outside in the hurricane, shouting at the wind to stop. This is not only futile, it is exhausting. It drains your life force and leaves your inner world undefended and in ruins. The Stoic practice, the building of your own inner citadel, begins with a single, powerful question you can ask in any moment of distress. Is this within my control? Look at the situation clearly. The traffic jam is not in your control. The mood of your partner is not in your control. The fact that a past mistake happened is not in your control. The only thing that is truly yours in that moment is how you choose to respond. This is where your power lies. It is a quiet, immense, and inviolable power. You can choose to meet the traffic jam with white-knuckled rage, or with a gentle acceptance that allows you to simply be present in your car. You can choose to react to a critical comment with a defensive lashing out, or with the quiet understanding that the other person's words are a reflection of their own inner state, not a definitive truth about you. Building the citadel does not mean becoming unfeeling or detached from the world. It means engaging with the world from a place of unshakable strength. Your mind becomes a fortress, not to hide from life, but to live it more fully, with wisdom, courage, and a peace that the outer world cannot give, and therefore can never take away. Even the strongest citadel, built with the finest philosophical bricks, can become a prison if you forget its purpose. The words of the sages, the wisdom of the Stoics, the parables of Zen, they are all tools. But the mind has a subtle habit of falling in love with its tools, forgetting what it was meant to build. A famous Zen teaching, often attributed to the Buddha himself, illuminates this trap with perfect clarity. The teaching is not a complex sutra, but a simple image. My teaching is a finger pointing to the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon. Imagine a master and his students gathered on a clear, silent night. The master raises his arm and points a single, steady finger toward the brilliant, luminous moon hanging in the ink-black sky. He says nothing. The students, earnest and eager to understand, lean in. One begins to meticulously study the finger itself. Notice the angle, he whispers to the others. It must signify a specific degree of effort. Another observes. The wrinkles on his knuckles surely represent the obstacles on the path. Soon, they are all huddled together, debating the finer points of the finger, its anatomy, its symbolism, its history. They fill their notebooks with theories about the finger, and all the while, in their passionate, intellectual analysis, not a single one of them actually looks up to see the breathtaking, silent, magnificent moon. This is the great peril of the spiritual path. The ego, the part of the mind that thrives on identity and ownership, cannot possess the moon. The moon is vast, silent, and experiential. It is the direct, living truth of the present moment. It is the feeling of peace that descends when thought subsides. It cannot be captured in words or held by concepts. But the ego can and does collect fingers. It loves to collect them. A finger can be a book, a philosophy, a label. A person can accumulate a vast knowledge of spiritual texts. They can learn the Sanskrit and Pali terms. They can flawlessly recite the teachings of Stoicism. They can label themselves a Buddhist, a Stoic, a meditator. This creates a sophisticated, knowledgeable identity, a very impressive-looking finger. But all too often, this intellectual accumulation serves as a barrier, a beautiful and ornate screen that one holds up to block the view of the moon itself. The person can talk about the taste of water, but they are dying of thirst. In this modern age, you are surrounded by a dizzying array of pointing fingers. They are in the books on your shelf, the podcasts you listen to, the inspirational quotes that fill your social media feeds. Even these words, this voice you are hearing now, are nothing more than a finger. The danger is that you might begin polishing the finger. You might find yourself subtly proud of your understanding of non-attachment, or your ability to explain the dichotomy of control to others. You might mistake the intellectual grasp of a concept for its lived reality. Ask yourself, with gentle honesty, are you spending your time analyzing the recipe, or are you actually tasting the food? Do you talk about the importance of being present while your mind is 1,000 miles away, planning or worrying? Do you understand the theory of the inner citadel, but crumble at the first sign of an outer storm? The invitation here is to hold all teachings, all fingers, with a light and gracious hand. See them for what they are: maps. A map is invaluable for pointing the way, but it is not the territory. The goal is not to have the most detailed map, but to arrive at the destination. The ultimate purpose of any true teaching is to become obsolete. It is a raft designed to carry you across a turbulent river to the farther shore. Once you arrive, you do not continue your journey carrying the raft on your back. You leave it at the water's edge with gratitude and walk on, unencumbered. So let these words, and all the words you have ever learned, serve their purpose. Let them point. But then, be brave enough to look where they are pointing, inward, to the direct, silent, luminous experience of your own awareness. The moon is waiting. The most powerful teachings are not abstract theories that appeal to the intellect. They are living stories that reveal the inner workings of the mind. They are mirrors held up to our own condition. They do not merely point to the moon. They show us why we have been staring at our own feet the entire time. There is such a story about two monks, a senior monk named Tanzan and a junior monk named Aikido, who were on a long pilgrimage. They walked for many miles on a road that was thick with mud after heavy rains. As they came around a bend, they saw a young woman dressed in a beautiful silk kimono, standing by the side of the road, unable to cross because a section of the path had turned into a deep, muddy puddle. She was in great distress, as the mud would ruin her fine clothes. The junior monk, Aikido, a very serious and devout man, averted his eyes. Their monastic precepts were clear. A monk should not go near a female, let alone a young and lovely one. It was a source of temptation, a violation of the rules they had vowed to uphold. But the senior monk, Tanzan, simply walked up to the young woman, smiled, and without a word, lifted her up in his arms. He carried her gracefully over the muddy stretch of road and gently set her down on the other side. She bowed to him in gratitude, and he bowed back. Then, the two monks continued on their way. For the next several hours, they walked in silence. But it was not a peaceful silence. Aikido's mind was a raging storm. He was scandalized, indignant. How could Tanzan, his senior, so brazenly break their sacred vows? The images replayed in his head. Tanzan's hands on the woman, the scent of her perfume, the impropriety of it all. He fumed, rehearsing his condemnation. Finally, as they neared the lodging temple for the night, Aikido could bear it no longer. He burst out, "Brother Tanzan, we monks are not supposed to do things like that. We must not go near women. Why did you carry that girl across the road? It was a serious transgression." Tanzan looked at the junior monk, his face calm and gentle. He replied with a quiet simplicity that cut through all of Aikido's turmoil. "I left the girl there, back at the river," he said. "Are you still carrying her?" In that one question, the whole of Zen is contained. Tanzan performed a physical act. He saw a problem. He acted with pure, unhesitating compassion. And when the act was complete, it was finished. His mind was free. It left no trace, no residue. Aikido performed no physical act, yet he was the one who was truly burdened. He picked the woman up in his mind and carried her for miles, adding the heavy weight of his judgments, his rules, and his indignation to the load. This story is a perfect mirror for our own lives. Ask yourself, right now, how many women are you carrying? The woman might be the driver who cut you off in traffic 3 hours ago. Your journey ended. You are physically safe in your home. But are you still carrying the injustice in your mind? Are you still honking the horn in your imagination? The woman might be a disagreement you had with your partner yesterday. The conversation is over, but are you still carrying the sharp words, the hurt feelings, the defensive posture? The woman might be a mistake you made at work last week or last year. The project is finished. The consequences have passed. But are you still carrying the shame, the fear of being seen as incompetent? You leave the office, but you do not leave the meeting. You end the phone call, but you do not end the argument. We are all Aikido, walking through our lives weighed down by events and people that we mentally refuse to set down. To release them is the essence of forgiveness and non-attachment. It is the practice of leaving the past where it belongs, back at the river. What is this part of the mind that insists on carrying the woman from the river? What is it that clings so tightly to grievances, that builds its identity on past hurts and future worries? The ancient traditions have given it many names, but the most common is the ego. It is the sense of a separate, solid I at the center of your experience, and far from being a simple enemy to be destroyed. It is a force of immense power and energy, an old Zen allegory, told through a series of 10 beautiful and profound pictures, maps out the journey of encountering and understanding this force. It is the story of taming the wild bull. In the beginning of the story, a herdsman is lost. He is searching for his bull, which represents his true nature, his original mind. But the bull is wild, untamed, and has wandered off. The man is distressed, lost in the wilderness of his own confusion. This is the state of unconscious suffering, of being dragged through life by forces you do not understand. Then, in the second picture, he finds the tracks. For the first time, he sees evidence that the bull exists. This is the birth of awareness. It is that first moment of mindfulness when you suddenly notice a pattern in yourself. You see the tracks of your anger. You notice the footprints of your anxiety. You recognize the familiar path of your self-criticism. You are not yet free, but for the first time, you know what you are looking for. Following the tracks, the herdsman finds the bull. It is a magnificent, powerful, dark creature, full of wild, chaotic energy. The struggle begins. He gets a rope around its nose, and the battle is immense. The bull pulls him violently, dragging him through the mud. This represents the initial, difficult phase of practice. It is the moment you decide not to indulge an old habit, not to lash out in anger, not to sink into despair. It feels like a fight for your life, a wrestling match with a powerful, primal force within you. But the herdsman is patient. Through gentle, persistent effort, he begins to tame the bull. In the subsequent pictures, we see the bull gradually becoming calmer. Its color begins to change from a fierce black to a gentle white. The herdsman can let go of his whip and rope. The struggle ceases, replaced by a growing harmony. This is the fruit of consistent practice. It is learning to meet your own powerful emotions not with more violence, but with compassionate awareness. You no longer need to wrestle your anger to the ground. You can sit with it, acknowledge it, and let its energy dissolve without causing harm. Finally, in one of the most beautiful images, the herdsman is seen riding on the back of the bull, playing a flute as they journey home. There is no rope, no whip, no struggle. They move as one. The bull's immense power is not gone. It is now guided by the wisdom of the herdsman. The ego has not been killed. It has been integrated. Its energy is now the very vehicle that carries you through life with grace and joy. This is the journey you are on. You have a wild bull within you. Its raw energy fuels your ambition, your passion, and your desire to live. But when untamed, it also fuels your rage, your jealousy, and your fear. You see its tracks every time you feel that flash of defensiveness when someone gives you feedback. You feel its immense pull when you experience a craving for something that you know is not good for you. You hear its roar in the inner critic that tells you that you are not enough. The practice is not to kill this powerful creature. It is to find its tracks, to see it clearly. It is to have the courage to begin the taming, to sit with the discomfort, to hold the rope gently but firmly. The goal is to one day ride this magnificent energy, to transform the force that once caused your suffering into the very power that carries you home to a place of profound peace and wholeness. The journey of taming the bull begins with a struggle, but it does not end there. The whip and the rope are temporary tools, necessary only when the force of habit is strong and our awareness is new. True mastery, true inner harmony, is not an act of force. It is an act of cultivation, much like the work of a wise gardener. The mind is a garden, a fertile plot of land given to each person at birth. In this garden, anything can grow. Seeds are planted every day, by experience, by conversation, by the culture we live in. Some seeds grow into beautiful, fragrant flowers. Others grow into persistent, strangling weeds. Consider two gardeners. The first gardener looks upon his plot and sees only the weeds. He despises them. He sees them as invaders, as a sign of his own failure. His gardening is an act of war. He attacks the weeds with rage, hacking at their leaves with a sharp hoe. He yanks them violently from the ground, but in his fury, he often breaks the stem, leaving the deep root to grow back even stronger. In his desperation, he pours poison over the entire garden, hoping to eradicate the weeds for good. But the poison seeps into the soil, sickening the flowers, making the earth itself toxic and inhospitable. His garden becomes a barren battleground, and despite all his violent effort, the resilient weeds always return. The second gardener has a different way. He too sees the weeds, but he does not hate them. He understands they are a natural part of any garden. He sees them not as an enemy, but simply as a plant growing in the wrong place. His work is not driven by hatred, but by a clear vision of the beautiful garden he wishes to create. He does not attack, he tends. When he finds a weed, he kneels down. He gently loosens the soil around it, and with patient, steady hands, he pulls the entire weed out, root and all. He casts it aside without anger, but this is only a small part of his work. His main focus is on the flowers. He waters them diligently. He feeds the soil with rich compost. He ensures they have access to the open sunlight. He spends his energy nourishing what he wants to grow. In time, his flowers become so vibrant, so healthy and strong, that their lush leaves and blossoms create a canopy that leaves little room and little light for new weeds to take root. You are the gardener of your own mind. For years, you may have been the first gardener. The weeds are your negative thought patterns, the recurring worry, the sharp voice of the inner critic, the bitter taste of resentment. When they appear, what is your first reaction? Do you attack them? Do you get angry at yourself for being anxious? Do you shame yourself for feeling jealous? This is hacking at the weeds with a hoe. You are fighting yourself, pouring poison into your own soil, making your inner world a place of conflict. This struggle only gives the weeds more energy, more of your precious attention, and leaves their roots deep in the ground. The path of wisdom is the path of the second gardener. It is the practice of self-compassion. When a weed thought appears, the familiar story of "I am not good enough," you don't have to believe it or fight it. You can learn to kneel down mentally, to acknowledge its presence without judgment. There is the weed of unworthiness. You see it clearly. Then, with gentle intention, you can withdraw your focus from it, gently uprooting it by not feeding it any more belief. But most importantly, you must then turn and tend to your flowers. Actively cultivate a moment of gratitude. Intentionally recall a past success, no matter how small. Feel the simple, physical sensation of your body breathing. By deliberately nourishing thoughts of kindness, contentment, and peace, you strengthen them. You change the very soil of your mind, making it a place where flowers flourish and weeds struggle for light. A peaceful mind is not a mind with no negative thoughts. It is a mind where the positive has been so tenderly cultivated that it has become the dominant landscape. As you learn to tend to your inner garden, cultivating flowers and gently removing weeds, you begin to change the very atmosphere of your mind. This inner climate does not remain contained. It radiates outward, coloring your perception of everything you encounter. The world, in turn, begins to look like a mirror of your inner state. An old story illustrates this profound truth with the simple beauty of an echo. A young boy, in a fit of anger after a disagreement with his family, ran out of his house and up into the hills. He felt misunderstood, isolated, and furious at the world. He came to the edge of a great, rocky canyon and, wanting to vent his bitter feelings, he cupped his hands around his mouth and screamed into the vast emptiness, "I hate you." Immediately, from across the canyon, a voice shouted back, "I hate you." The boy was startled and terrified. He was sure there was a mean, angry boy hiding in the rocks, mocking him. He shouted again, "Who are you?" The voice replied, "Who are you?" Now convinced he had an enemy, he ran back home, crying, and told his mother that there was a horrible boy in the hills who hated him and was shouting mean things at him. His mother, a wise woman, listened to his story. She didn't dismiss his fear. Instead, she said, "Go back to the canyon. This time, I want you to shout something different. Shout, 'I love you,' and see what happens." The boy was skeptical and still afraid, but he trusted his mother. He walked back to the edge of the Great Canyon. He took a deep breath, and with all the courage he could muster, he shouted, "I love you." He waited, his heart pounding, and then, from across the chasm, a clear, warm voice returned, "I love you." A smile spread across his face as he shouted, "You are wonderful." The echo came back instantly, "You are wonderful." From that day on, the canyon was his favorite place to play. The world is your canyon. It does not have a voice of its own. It is a neutral, resonant space that faithfully reflects whatever you shout into it. The reality you experience is not a fixed, objective truth that happens to you. It is an echo of the state of your own heart and mind. If your inner garden is full of the weeds of anger, suspicion, and resentment, you will shout, "I hate you," into the world without even realizing it. You will project this hostility onto others. You will interpret a neutral comment from a colleague as a personal attack. You will see a partner's quiet mood as a sign of their displeasure with you. You will view the world as a cold, threatening place, and the world will dutifully echo that reality back to you, confirming your deepest fears. You will have proven to yourself that there is, indeed, a mean boy in the hills. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy of the untrained mind. But you have the power to change the shout. This is the fruit of all your inner work, of emptying the cup, of setting down the old burdens, of taming the bull, of tending the garden. As you cultivate peace within, you begin to shout a different message into the canyon. You approach a difficult meeting not with the shout of "this will be a battle," but with the quiet intention of "let's find a solution." You interact with a stranger not with the projection of "what do you want from me?" but with an attitude of simple, open curiosity. You learn to be the one who shouts "I love you" first, without waiting for the world to prove it is safe. This is not naive optimism. It is profound wisdom. It is the understanding that your experience of life is an inside-out job. The peace and kindness you wish to find in the world must first be cultivated in the fertile ground of your own heart. Listen carefully to the echo you are receiving from your life right now. It is a perfect teacher. It is showing you, with flawless accuracy, exactly what you have been shouting. When you understand that the world is an echo of your own inner state, a profound question arises. If the world reflects your shout, what is the nature of the shout itself? What is the fundamental nature of the anger, the love, the fear that you project? And what is the nature of the self who is shouting? To explore this is to move into the very heart of wisdom, to a concept that is both simple and stunningly deep. In the Buddhist tradition, it is called sunyata. The word is often translated as emptiness, and this translation causes immediate misunderstanding. Emptiness does not mean nothingness or a terrifying void. It means empty of a separate, independent, permanent self. It points to the truth that nothing exists on its own. Everything is interconnected, selfless, and in a constant state of flow. Imagine a single, beautiful wave rising from the sea. The wave has a form, a temporary identity. It might think to itself, "I am a large wave," or "I am a small wave, and I am afraid of crashing on the shore and dying." It sees other waves as separate from itself, and its existence feels fragile and temporary. But then, in a moment of clarity, the wave realizes its true nature. It is not, and never was, just a wave. It is the ocean. Its entire being is composed of water, the very same substance as the vast, deep ocean beneath it and every other wave around it. When it crashes on the shore, it doesn't die. It simply returns to its source, a source it never truly left. The wave was empty of a separate wave self. Its reality was always ocean. This is the nature of all things. A flower is empty of a separate self. It is made of non-flower elements like sunlight, water, soil, and air. Your own sense of self is the same. The you that you believe to be a solid, continuous entity is actually a temporary waveform, a collection of thoughts, feelings, memories, and bodily sensations, all constantly changing. Your true nature is the vast ocean of awareness in which this wave of self appears. Another powerful metaphor is that of a perfect diamond. The Diamond Sutra, one of the most profound texts on this topic, reveals this wisdom. A diamond is precious not for what it contains, but for what it lacks. It is empty of any color of its own. Because it is perfectly clear, it can effortlessly refract and reflect all the colors of the spectrum. If the diamond were red, it could only show redness. Because it is empty, it can dance with all light, holding every color without being stained by any of them. This understanding is the diamond that cuts through all illusion and suffering. When you feel a powerful emotion, like anxiety, you tend to identify with it. I am anxious. You become the wave of anxiety. But with the wisdom of emptiness, you can see that anxiety is a temporary weather pattern passing through the vast sky of your awareness. You are the sky, not the cloud. The anxiety is empty of being you. When someone insults you, the words can feel like a solid blow. But seeing their emptiness means recognizing they are just sounds, born from another person's own conditioning and inner state. They are not a fundamental truth about you. You can let them pass through you, like light passing through the clear diamond, leaving you unstained. This does not mean you become passive or unfeeling. It means you are no longer a victim of your own reactions. You are no longer defined by the fleeting waves of experience. This is not a cold, philosophical idea. It is the key to profound freedom. Because things are empty of a fixed self, they can change. Because you are not a static, unchanging person, you can grow, learn, and heal. Because your pain is not a solid, permanent entity, it can dissolve. Sunyata is not a lack, it is the ultimate potential. It is the open space in which life happens. It is the silence that allows music to be heard. It is the clear, empty diamond of your own true nature, capable of holding the entire universe. The understanding that yourself and your suffering are empty of a solid, permanent nature is profoundly liberating. Yet, a question remains. What about the marks that suffering leaves behind? What about the past pains, the old wounds, the traumas that feel so intensely real they seem etched into the very core of your being? If they are empty, why do they still ache? The path of wisdom does not ask you to deny these scars. It invites you to see them in a new light, to understand their sacred purpose. In Japan, there is an ancient art form called kintsugi, which means to join with gold. When a cherished piece of pottery, a bowl or a cup, is dropped and shatters, it is not thrown away. It is not even repaired to hide the damage. Instead, a master craftsman undertakes a patient and beautiful transformation. He carefully gathers every broken piece, every tiny shard. He then painstakingly reassembles the vessel, but he uses a special lacquer mixed with glittering powdered gold to bind the pieces back together. When he is finished, the bowl is whole again, but it is not the same. A network of shining golden rivers now runs through it, tracing the exact lines where it was broken. The bowl's history of trauma is not concealed, it is illuminated. The cracks are now its most stunning feature, a testament to its journey. The bowl is considered more beautiful, more precious, and stronger than it was in its original, unbroken state. This is the philosophy of the healed heart. It is the art of mending your own life with gold. Every human life is a ceramic vessel, and every life without exception experiences breaks. There are the sharp blows of loss and betrayal, the slow, creeping cracks of disappointment and neglect, the shattering impact of failure. The first impulse, driven by the ego's fear of imperfection, is to hide these cracks. A person tries to pretend they were never broken. They present a smooth, polished surface to the world, while living in constant fear that their hidden damage will be exposed. They carry their broken pieces with a deep and heavy shame, believing the breaks have made them less worthy, less beautiful. Kintsugi teaches the opposite. It is in the breaking that a new kind of wholeness becomes possible. The scars are not a sign of your brokenness. They are the proof of your survival. Look with gentle eyes upon the vessel of your own life. Where are your golden seams? That painful breakup that shattered your heart. Perhaps it was mended with the gold of self-reliance and a new understanding of what you truly need. That period of deep depression that felt like a dark abyss. Perhaps the crack was filled with the gold of profound empathy for the suffering of others. That failure in your career that felt like the end of the world. Perhaps it was repaired with the gold of humility, resilience, and the discovery of a more authentic path. The gold is the wisdom that is forged only in the fire of adversity. It is the compassion that is born only from having known pain. It is the strength that comes only from putting yourself back together. Healing is not about trying to return to the naive, unbroken state you were in before the fall. That person is gone. The goal is to become the Kintsugi master of your own soul. To gather your broken pieces with courage and to mend them with the gold of self-love and awareness. Do not be ashamed of your scars. They tell the story of a warrior. They show where you have been wounded and where you have healed. They are the map of your strength. A person who has never been tested has a certain kind of simple beauty, but a person who has faced their own shattering and has had the courage to mend their own wounds possesses a deep, luminous, and unshakable beauty. They are not beautiful despite their scars. They are beautiful because of them. Having honored the past and mended your wounds with gold, you turn to face the present. This precious, remade vessel of your life must now navigate the world of today. How do you protect it? How do you move through the inevitable challenges of daily life without incurring new cracks, new fractures? The Stoics offered a powerful practice for this, a kind of mental armor forged not from steel, but from wisdom. Return for a moment to the tent of the Roman Emperor, Marcus Aurelius. It is the hour before dawn. The camp is quiet. He is about to face a day where he will be petitioned, criticized, and confronted by people driven by fear, ambition, and ignorance. He does not prepare by hoping for the best. He prepares by anticipating the worst, he writes to himself, a practice of mental inoculation for the day ahead. When you wake up in the morning, he says, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He paints a clear, unflinching picture of the difficult human behaviors he will likely encounter. But he does not stop there, for that would only be pessimism. He immediately follows this with a dose of profound perspective. They are like this, he reminds himself, because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, and that none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness. He was performing a mental fire drill. By calmly walking through the potential hazards of the day in advance, he strips them of their power to shock and anger him. This is not an invitation to become cynical. It is a strategy for preserving your own tranquility. The surprise element of an event is often what fuels our most intense emotional reactions. When a driver cuts you off, it is the shock and the perceived injustice that triggers the surge of rage. When a colleague is ungrateful for your help, it is the unexpectedness of their response that creates the sting of resentment. The Stoic morning reflection removes the element of surprise. You have already considered the possibility. When the ungrateful colleague appears, your mind doesn't react with shock. It recognizes, yes, I prepared for this possibility. The event is immediately defanged. It is no longer a personal affront, but simply a scenario playing out, one for which you have already rehearsed a calm, wise, and patient response. You can adopt this practice in your own life. When you first wake, before you reach for your phone, before the noise of the world rushes in, take a quiet moment. Look ahead at the landscape of your day. See the tasks and the interactions that await you. Acknowledge the potential for friction. You might have a tedious meeting scheduled. You might need to navigate a difficult commute. You might have to deal with a family member who is consistently critical. Do not visualize these things to create anxiety, but simply to acknowledge their potential reality. Then, for each one, decide in advance who you want to be. When the traffic is stopped, will you be the person who fumes with rage, or the person who uses the time to breathe and be still? When the critical family member speaks, will you be the one who automatically becomes defensive, or the one who can listen with compassion? Understanding their words come from their own pain. You are setting your emotional and philosophical intentions for the day. You are choosing your character ahead of time, rather than allowing the day's events to dictate it for you. This is an act of supreme self-respect. It is a declaration that your own inner peace, your own integrity, is more important to you than having a day where everything goes exactly as planned. You are not trying to control the world, which is impossible. You are focused on controlling your response, which is always possible. You meet the day not with the fragile hope that it will be easy, but with the quiet confidence that you are prepared for whatever it may bring. Having prepared your mind with stoic resolve, you build a mighty fortress against the chaos of the world. This is a profound and necessary strength. Yet, there is another kind of wisdom, a power found not in unshakable resistance, but in intelligent, graceful yielding. It is the wisdom not of the rock, but of the river that flows around it. Consider the journey of a river. It begins as a humble trickle from a mountain spring, with a singular, unwavering purpose: to reach the ocean. It does not worry about the path. It simply begins to flow. Early in its journey, a great boulder, a remnant of an ancient age, stands directly in its way. The river does not exhaust itself in a futile attempt to smash the boulder. It does not rage or curse its fate. It simply yields. It flows around the obstacle, patiently dividing and rejoining on the other side, continuing its journey as if the boulder were a welcome partner in a dance. Further on, the earth falls away into a sudden, steep cliff. The river does not cling to the edge in fear. It does not fight against the pull of gravity. It surrenders completely, letting go of everything and becoming a magnificent, roaring waterfall. In its surrender, it finds a new and awesome power. Then, it reaches a wide, flat plain during a season of drought. Its current slows, and it seems its journey might end, absorbed into the parched earth. But the river does not panic. It trusts. It pools its energy, waits patiently, and allows itself to be what it is in that moment: a quiet, still body of water. It trusts that the greater flow of the seasons will bring the rain that will swell its banks and carry it forward once again. The river's strength is not in force, but in its profound softness, its absolute trust in the flow. This is the heart of the Taoist wisdom known as Wu Wei. These two words are often translated as non-action or effortless action. But this doesn't mean passivity or laziness. It means acting in perfect harmony with the natural current of life, rather than struggling against it. It is the wisdom of a sailor who uses the wind to fill their sails, rather than trying to row against a gale. It is the skill of a surfer who aligns with the immense power of a wave to get a joyful ride to shore, rather than being pummeled by it. The ego believes that its constant effort, its straining and striving, is what makes things happen. It wants to micromanage reality, to force outcomes. This creates immense friction and exhaustion. Wu Wei is the recognition that the greatest power comes from aligning yourself with the larger forces already in motion, and that often the most effective action is to gracefully get out of your own way. Where in your life are you fighting the current? Where are you trying to be the rock instead of the water? Perhaps it is in a relationship where you are relentlessly trying to change the other person, a futile struggle against the nature of who they are. Perhaps it is in your work, where you are pouring all your energy into a project that is clearly failing, refusing to yield to the evidence before you. Perhaps it is in your own inner world, where you try to bully yourself into being less anxious or more productive, creating a constant state of internal war. To practice Wu Wei is to have the courage to stop pushing, to stop forcing. It is to pause in the middle of an argument and simply listen. It is to step away from a problem that feels unsolvable and trust that a solution will arise from a place of rest. It is the profound relief of letting go of the oars and realizing the current was taking you where you needed to go all along. Water is the softest and most yielding thing in the world, yet it overcomes the hardest and most rigid. This is its secret. This can be yours as well. The wisdom of the flowing river, of Wu Wei, is a mature and profound state of being. But what is it within a person that fights this graceful current? What is the part of the psyche that insists on clinging to rocks of fear, that gets caught in whirlpools of rage, or that freezes in terror, unable to move at all? To understand this resistance, we must take a journey inward to a place we may have long avoided. Imagine that your psyche is a large and sprawling house. You live your adult life in the main rooms, the living room, the kitchen, the study. You keep these rooms tidy, well lit, and presentable for guests. This is your conscious personality, the capable adult self you show to the world. But in a distant hallway of this house, there is a door that has been locked for a very long time. You try not to think about it, but you know it's there. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you can hear faint sounds from behind the door, a muffled cry, or the angry thud of a small fist banging against the wood. You turn up the volume on the television. You distract yourself with work. You do anything to avoid acknowledging the occupant of that neglected room, but the sounds persist. And one day, driven by a deep sense of unease and a flicker of compassion, you decide you must open the door. You find the old, rusty key. Your hand trembles as you turn the lock. The door creaks open into a dusty, dark space. And there, in the corner, sits a small child. The child is lonely, afraid, and clutching a memory of a time it felt unseen, unsafe, or unloved. This child is you. It is your own inner child, the part of you that holds the pure, unfiltered emotions and experiences of your youth. When that child's fundamental needs for safety, connection, and validation were not fully met, that part of your consciousness became frozen in time, locked away in a room so the adult you could carry on. But a locked away child does not disappear. It quietly runs the house from behind its locked door. Its unmet needs become the hidden engine for your most powerful and puzzling adult behaviors. When you feel a surge of panic at the thought of a partner leaving, that is the terrified child screaming, "Don't abandon me." When you fly into an explosive rage over a minor inconvenience, that is the powerless child having a tantrum, finally venting its frustration at not being in control. When you find yourself desperately seeking praise from a boss or approval from peers, that is the child pleading with a distant parent. "Please, just tell me I'm good enough." These are not adult reactions. They are emotional flashbacks. The adult you is simply the vehicle for the child's unresolved pain. The path to healing, to true adulthood, is not to silence this child or to keep the door locked more tightly. It is to do what you have just imagined, to open the door, step inside, and kneel down. The conscious, compassionate adult you are today is the only person who can heal this child. The child doesn't need analysis. It needs love. It doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be heard. The healing begins with a simple, internal dialogue. It is the adult self turning to the child self and saying, "I see you now. I'm sorry I left you alone for so long. I am here. You are safe with me. I will not leave you." In these acts of internal reparenting, you give the child what it always needed. You soothe its fears, validate its feelings, and slowly, gently, you can invite it out of the dark room and into the light of your whole being. Until you befriend this child, you will never be truly free. You will always be fighting a current, because the one steering your ship is a frightened child, desperately trying to avoid old hurts, Having opened the door to the neglected room and begun the tender process of befriending your inner child, a new quality of emotional quiet can emerge. The frantic banging from within subsides. Yet, even with a calmer heart, the thinking mind continues its ceaseless work. It is a machine built to analyze, categorize, and solve. But what happens when it is faced with a mystery that has no solution? What happens when it meets a question designed not to be answered, but to break the questioner? This is the territory of the Zen Koan. In the Zen tradition, a student who has mastered the philosophical text and demonstrated great discipline may be given such a tool. Imagine a young monk, brilliant and keen, coming before his master. He has memorized the sutras. He can debate complex points of doctrine, and his mind is a sharp, polished instrument. He believes he is ready for the final, ultimate teaching. The master looks at the young monk, sees his earnestness, but also sees that his cup is full of intellectual knowledge. Instead of offering another text, another concept to be collected, the master holds up one hand and asks a simple question. We all know the sound of two hands clapping. Tell me, what is the sound of one hand clapping? The monk is stunned into silence. He retreats from the master's presence, his mind racing. A sound from one hand. It's impossible. It violates the law of cause and effect. But he is a good student, and he tries to solve it like a riddle. The next day, he returns. Master, he says, it is the sound of the wind blowing through the pine trees. The master shakes his head. No, go back. The monk tries again. It is the sound of silence. No, the master replies. Over and over, the monk brings intellectual, poetic, and philosophical answers, and each time the master gently rejects them, sending him away to listen more deeply. The koan is not a riddle. It is a surgical instrument designed to dismantle the logical mind. The rational intellect, the part of you that is listening and making sense of these words right now, operates within a dualistic framework. It understands up by contrasting it with down, light by contrasting it with dark, sound by contrasting it with silence. The sound of one hand clapping presents a paradox that this dualistic mind cannot resolve. It is a piece of grit in the gears of the logical machine. In his desperation to find an answer, the monk's mind spins faster and faster, generating immense internal pressure until, exhausted and defeated, the entire mechanism of logical thought collapses. This is what is known as the great doubt, leading to the great death of the conceptual mind. And in the silent, open, spacious awareness that follows this collapse, a new kind of knowing can dawn, a direct, intuitive insight that is not about reality, but is the experience of reality itself. Your mind is a tireless problem solver. It is addicted to answers. In an age of infinite information, you have been trained to believe that any question can be answered with enough data, enough analysis. But the deepest aspects of your life are not problems to be solved. They are koans to be lived. What do you do when you are faced with a choice between two paths? And logic can provide equally compelling reasons for both. What is the right answer to the grief of losing someone you love? How do you solve the paradox of wanting both profound connection and absolute freedom? You treat these mysteries as problems, and your mind spins its wheels, creating endless anxiety, just like the monk. You are trying to figure out the sound of one hand clapping. The wisdom of the koan is to surrender the search for an answer. It is the courage to sit in the burning fire of not knowing. It is to hold the paradox, to feel the tension of the question without demanding a resolution. When you can finally let go of the need to figure it all out, you stop listening with the frantic ears of your intellect. You begin to listen with your entire being. The sound of one hand clapping is not a noise to be heard. It is the profound silence that is revealed when the noise of your own thinking finally stops. When the mind finally gives up trying to solve the unsolvable koan, it falls into a state of quiet. But its old habits are strong. The tendency to search for a future answer, a future solution, is deeply ingrained. This same habit creates one of the most pervasive and subtle traps for the human spirit, the illusion that peace is a future event. It is the trap of when and if. Consider the story of a man who was given a single magical seed by a wise old sage. This seed, the sage told him, contains a tree that bears the fruit of perfect happiness, but it will only grow if you plant it in the absolute perfect spot, a place with the perfect soil, the perfect amount of sunlight, and the perfect measure of rain. The man was overjoyed. He took the precious seed and began his quest. He traveled the world, searching for the perfect place. He found a beautiful, sun-drenched valley, but after testing the soil, he decided it was a little too sandy. He moved on and found a land with incredibly rich, dark earth, but he worried it lay in a rain shadow and would not receive enough water. He journeyed to a lush island where the rain was plentiful and the soil was good, but he felt the constant coastal wind might be too harsh for the delicate seedling. For years, his quest continued. He passed through countless places of exquisite beauty, places where any ordinary seed would have thrived. But for each one, his mind found an imperfection, a reason to believe it was not the perfect spot. His entire life became a preparation for planting the seed. He grew old and frail, his body weary from his endless journey. One evening, sitting alone, he looked down at the dry, withered seed in his palm and began to weep. He had spent his entire life searching for the perfect conditions to begin living, and in doing so, had never planted the seed at all. This man is every one of us. The magical seed is our own potential for peace and contentment, and the mind is the tireless fault finder, convincing us that the conditions for peace are not here, not now. They are always in the future, just over the next horizon. This is the tyranny of the conditional mind. It creates a formula for happiness. I will be happy when I get the promotion. I will feel at peace if my children behave. I will be able to relax when I finally go on vacation. You have been living by this formula your entire life, but it is a lie. When you get the promotion, the mind will whisper, "Now I need a bigger house." When the children behave, you will start worrying about their grades. The horizon of happiness is a mirage that recedes the moment you approach it. The problem was never the soil or the sun. The problem was the man's belief that he had to search for them. Listen, with gentle honesty, to the inner monologue that runs your life. How many of your sentences begin with when or if? I'll be confident when I lose 10 pounds. I'll start my creative project when I have more energy. My life will finally begin when I meet the right person. Each of these statements is an act of postponement. It is a vow you make to yourself to not be happy, confident, or peaceful right now. You are placing the key to your own well-being in a future that may never arrive, and in conditions that you cannot control. The antidote is simple. Though it requires conscious practice, it is the act of dropping the condition. The moment you hear the when clause arise in your mind, see it for the trap it is. The thought appears, I will be calm when I get through this stressful week. Acknowledge it, and then gently ask yourself, can I find one single breath of calm right now? You are not denying the stress of the week. You are simply refusing to make it a prerequisite for your own suffering. You are planting the seed. You are taking your power back from the imagined future and placing it where it has always been, in the present moment. The perfect soil you have been searching for your entire life is the ground beneath your feet, right now. Having dismantled the illusion of a future peace, you are left with the raw, vibrant, and powerful reality of the present moment. You have brought your awareness back from the distant mirage of when and if. But what is the quality of this present moment? How do you learn to inhabit it with strength and stability, rather than being tossed about by its changing nature? For this, we look to the wisdom of the mountain. Bring to your mind the image of a great, majestic mountain. See it or feel it in whatever way is most vivid for you. Notice its form, its base, rooted deep in the bedrock of the earth, solid and secure. Its slopes, rising with a patient and ancient grandeur. Its peak, touching the sky, serene and silent. The mountain simply sits. It has been sitting for eons, a silent witness to the unfolding of ages. Its very essence is a deep, unwavering, and unshakable presence. Now, become aware of the weather that happens to the mountain. The sun beats down on its rock face, warming it through. Then dark clouds gather. A violent thunderstorm erupts, with lightning flashing in the sky and torrential rain lashing against its sides. The mountain just sits. It allows the storm to rage, to release its fury, and then to pass. After the storm, a gentle mist may rise, shrouding its peaks in a soft, quiet blanket. The mountain sits, letting itself be shrouded. The howling winds of autumn arrive, trying to push and pull at it, but its great mass is unmoved. Winter comes, covering it in a deep, silent blanket of snow. The mountain wears the snow without complaint. It knows the spring will come to melt it. The mountain's being is not dependent on the weather. It does not become angry at the storm or sad in the fog. It is not attached to the pleasant warmth of the sun. It allows all weather to come and go, to pass over and through it, because it is rooted in an identity far deeper than the fleeting conditions on its surface. It knows, in its silent, rocky heart, that it is the mountain, not the weather. This is the state of equanimity, and you can learn to embody this mountain in your own consciousness. Your fundamental being, the deep awareness that is listening to these words, is the mountain. Your thoughts, emotions, and sensations are the weather. For most of your life, you have believed you are the weather. When a storm of anger arises, you say, "I am angry." You become the storm. When a thick fog of sadness descends, you say, "I am sad." You become the fog. You are swept away by every internal forecast, your peace entirely dependent on having clear, sunny skies within. The practice of being the mountain is to change this identification. When the next storm of a powerful emotion arises, be it rage or fear or jealousy, the invitation is to sit like the mountain. You do not suppress the feeling. You do not deny it. You let the storm happen. You feel the raw energy of the lightning and the thunder within you, but you maintain a small part of your awareness in the deep, quiet stillness of the mountain itself. You feel the sensations, but you know they are not you. You are the vast, stable presence that is holding the storm. The storm is a temporary event happening within you, the unchanging space. You can allow yourself to be sad without losing yourself to sadness. You can feel the heat of anger without being consumed by its fire. You learn to be the container for your experiences, rather than being contained by them. This cultivates an unshakable core of peace. Your stability no longer comes from trying to control the weather of your life, but from rooting yourself in the vast, silent, and eternal mountain of your own being. Having found the stillness of the mountain within, you have discovered a profound sanctuary. It is a place of deep stability and peace, a refuge from the storms of life. But the journey does not end in the fortress, however safe it may be. The mountain gives you the strength to take the next step, which is perhaps the most courageous of all. It is the step from the solid ground into the vast, open water. It is the act of letting go of the shore. Imagine a person who has lived their entire life on a small, familiar island. They know every tree, every rock, every winding path. They know which fruits are safe to eat and where to find shelter from the rain. The island is predictable. It is known. And because it is known, it feels safe, even if it is also a prison. Every day, the person walks to the edge of the island and looks out at the ocean. The ocean is vast, mysterious, and alive. It shimmers with a million colors under the sun and churns with a dark, awesome power in a storm. It holds the promise of new lands, of infinite discovery, of boundless freedom. A part of the person's soul yearns for it deeply, but another part is utterly terrified. The ocean has no paths, no landmarks. It is formless, unpredictable, and powerful. To enter it is to surrender all control. The person has built a small, sturdy boat, their spiritual practice, their accumulated wisdom. It sits ready at the water's edge, but it is tied to the shore by a thick, sturdy rope. The rope is their attachment to the known self. The rope is their fear of the unknown. And so, they remain, standing on the shore, caught between the suffocating safety of the island and the terrifying freedom of the ocean. This island is your ego. It is the story of who you think you are, constructed from your memories, your accomplishments, your wounds, your beliefs, and your fears. It is your name, your job, your personality. Even if parts of this story are painful, the belief that you are unworthy, the memory of a failure, a familiar pattern of anxiety, it is a story you know. There is a strange and tragic comfort in familiar suffering. You know its rules. You know its landscape. The ocean is your true nature. It is the vast, boundless awareness you have glimpsed in moments of deep peace. It is the sunyata, the creative emptiness that is your source. To let go of the shore is the ultimate act of faith. It is the willingness to release your grip on the limited, defined story of me, and to trust yourself to the magnificent, unknowable mystery of what you truly are. the ego will scream that this is death. It will fight with all its strength to keep the rope tied fast to the shore. But the deepest part of you, the silent witness, knows that this is not an ending, but the true beginning. You are standing on such a shore. Perhaps your island is a job that provides you with security but drains your spirit. Perhaps it is a relationship that is familiar but no longer nurturing. More subtly, perhaps your island is a core belief, such as, I am an anxious person, or I am not lovable. You have lived on this island of belief for so long that you mistake it for the entire world. The thought of not being anxious, of being truly lovable, is as terrifying as the open ocean. Who would you be without your familiar suffering? The invitation is not to leap blindly into the water. It is to simply walk to the edge of your island and acknowledge the rope. Look at it. See what it is made of. See that it is woven from threads of fear, from old habits, from a misplaced loyalty to your own pain. And just for a moment, imagine what it might feel like if the knot were a little bit looser. The journey home to the ocean does not begin with a dramatic leap, but with a quiet, courageous intention to, one day, untie the rope, having felt the courage to loosen the rope, to let go of the familiar shore. Your boat begins to drift. The sounds of the island, the cries of fear, the demands of old habits begin to fade into the distance. You are now on the open water, and a new kind of quiet begins to descend. The journey is nearing its end. The work is nearly done. All that is left is to witness the final stages of the mind settling. Imagine your mind is a vast sky at twilight. The frantic activity of the day is over. The sun has set, and the last thoughts, like the last birds of the day, are making their way home across the horizon. There is no need to rush them. There is no need to shoo them away. There is nothing to do at all, but to rest your gaze on the sky and watch them. A thought about tomorrow flies past. A small worry. Notice its shape, its color, its flight path. And then, simply let it go. Watch it disappear into the deepening blue. Another appears, a memory from earlier today, a fragment of a conversation. It, too, is a bird on a journey. You watch it come, and you watch it go. You do not need to follow it, to analyze its feathers, or to call it back. You are the sky, not the bird. The sky is not disturbed by the flight of birds. It is the vast, silent, allowing space in which they can appear and disappear. The flock begins to thin. The thoughts become fewer, slower, more distant. There are long, peaceful gaps of silence between them. You are resting in these gaps, resting in the vastness of your own quiet awareness. Now, you see it, the last bird, the last thought. It may be a simple image, a single word, a fleeting sensation. Do not cling to it. Do not push it away. Just watch it with a soft, gentle attention. Watch as it makes its slow journey across the immense twilight of your mind. Watch it drift closer and closer to the horizon, until finally, it too disappears. And then, stillness, a profound, deep, and peaceful silence. This is not an empty void. It is not a frightening nothingness. It is the sky, finally empty of all movement, yet full of a soft, luminous, and peaceful light. It is the silence of pure presence. It is the sound of one hand clapping. It is your own true nature, unveiled. There is nothing left to do now, nothing to figure out, no one to become, no place to go. You have arrived where you have always been. The struggle is over. Let the body be heavy, soft, and completely at ease. Let the breath breathe itself, a gentle, silent tide rising and falling without any effort. Let your awareness be as wide and as open as this night sky. If another thought should appear, see it not as a bird, but as a single distant star. You do not need to travel to it. You do not need to name its constellation. You can just appreciate its tiny light in the vast, dark stillness. It does not disturb the silence. It reveals its depth. Rest here, in this boundless peace, in this silent, loving awareness. You are home, in this deep, silent space. As you drift in the calm ocean of your own awareness, a final, simple truth reveals itself. After the journey to tame the bull, to tend the garden, to mend the broken vessel, to climb the mountain, and to let go of the shore, there is one last letting go. It is the letting go of the journey itself. In the Taoist tradition, there is a symbol for our original, untroubled nature. It is the pu, the uncarved block of wood. Imagine a block of wood, fresh from the forest. It is simple, solid, and natural. Its grain runs in unique and beautiful patterns. It smells of the earth and the rain. It is perfect in its simplicity. It holds within it the potential to become anything. A magnificent dragon, a sacred statue, a simple tool, 1,000 different things. But the moment a carver takes a chisel to it, the moment it is carved into something, it loses the potential to be everything. Its infinite possibility is exchanged for a single, finite form for your entire life. You have been carved. Your family, your education, your culture, and your own ego have been the carvers, shaping you with expectations, labels, and beliefs. You have been carved into a name, a role, a profession. You have been carved by your successes and your failures, your joys and your sorrows. Even this journey inward has been a kind of shaping, a process of smoothing the rough edges and mending the cracks. But the ultimate wisdom is not to become the most perfectly carved statue. The ultimate peace is to return to the simple, profound perfection of the uncarved block. It is to release the need to be anything at all, here, now, in this deep and restful quiet. You can let all the carvings fall away. You do not need to be a spiritual person. You do not need to be a healed person. You do not need to be a stoic or a meditator. These are just more carvings, more refined identities for the ego to cling to. Let them go. Let go of the spiritual ambition. Let go of the subtle effort to be peaceful, to be aware, to be wise. Let go of the very idea that there is a state to be attained. In this final, unconditional surrender, you discover the great secret. The peace you were seeking was hidden beneath the effort to find it. The wisdom you were chasing was obscured by the belief that you lacked it. You are not the intricate carvings of your personality. You are the wood itself. Your worth is not in what has been made of you, but in the simple, sacred fact of your own being. There is nothing to prove. There is no one to impress, not even yourself. The universe did not demand that a block of wood become a dragon. It was content with the wood. The universe does not demand that you become anything other than what you are. You are a human being, and that is, and has always been, enough. Let this be a complete resting, a return to the source, a release into the simple, unadorned, and perfect truth of your own presence. The journey was just a circle, leading you back to the perfect place you never left.